I'll do one heavy set. Again, I'll keep this overload set within the 4 to 6 repetition range. I'll do a couple of things to make sure I get the most out of each set for exercises that use single limb movements. I'll always start with my strongest arm. It will set the standard for my weaker arm to match. I'll always rest before training my second arm. I'll train my first arm, let my training partner do the same, then I'll train my second arm. My knees are slightly bent, my back is arched, my core is tight. I want to make sure that the triceps are doing the bulk of the work. I always want to make sure I control the weight on the negative phase of the movement. One-hit wonders. That's what I call sets where you have one chance to do it right. The next exercise for my triceps will be tricep pushdowns. I'll do 2 heavy sets. Again, I'll stay within the 4 to 6 repetition range. This is my favorite exercise for triceps. You use heavy weight to stimulate the triceps with virtually no stress on your elbows. Notice how I control the weight on the negative or eccentric part of the movement. I try to go twice as slowly on the negative part of the movement than I forcefully move through the positive or concentric phase. In my head, I count out a 1-2 cadence. 1 during the positive and 1-2 during the negative. 1, 1-2. 1, 1-2. I follow this cadence strategy for every exercise, for every body part, during every workout. Keeping this in mind helps me hit the intended muscle group more effectively. I'll finish up my triceps and the entire workout with lying tricep extensions. Even though my triceps are already warmed up, I'll still do one acclimation set. Another purpose for an acclimation set is to get your body and mind comfortable with the execution of an exercise with a distinct movement, even though the muscle group is already warmed up. Lying tricep extensions are not performed like skull crushers where you bring the bar to your forehead. This movement is very similar to the highly effective pushdown, except you're lying down. I have one heavy set here, so I'll have to give it everything I've got. Once again, I keep my heavy overload sets within the 4 to 6 repetition range. I make sure that I control the weight on the negative phase of the movement, moving twice as slowly as I forcefully drive through the positive phase. I keep my elbows tucked in closely to my body throughout the entire movement, as opposed to allowing them to flare outward. I'm using a wider grip here on the curl bar. Doing them this way or using a closer grip are both acceptable. Now this is not one of my favorite exercises, but I do them because they are extremely effective at building your triceps. And that's it for day 1 of training. As you can see, it does not take a lot of sets and reps to effectively stimulate muscle growth when you properly overload the muscle and train with intensity. Day 2, legs. I'll start off my leg training with quadriceps. Squats are first. I'll do 2 sets. I'll then move on to leg presses and do 2 sets. I'll round off my leg training with hamstrings. Leg curls are first. I'll do 2 sets. And I'll finish my hamstrings and leg training for the day with stiff leg deadlifts for 2 sets. I'll start my leg training with exercises that primarily focus on the quadriceps. The first exercise in this particular Max OT training leg workout will be squats. I'll do 3 warm-up sets and 1 acclimation set to get my body and mind ready for the heavy overload sets. If there's any day of training that takes the most physical effort, concentration, and courage, it has to be leg day. Squats are one of the best exercises for overall leg development. But squats have been a challenge for me over the years. So, if you're having trouble with squats, keep working on them. Don't skip over them like many people do and just rationalize why they are doing so. To keep my pace consistent, I rest the same amount of time between the warm-up sets as I do the heavy sets, even though the heavy sets are obviously more taxing. The amount of time I rest in between sets is about 2 to 3 minutes. That's just about what it takes for my training partner to do his set and to change any weights if necessary. When stepping out of the squat rack, you should only walk out enough distance to clear the rack. Save your energy for the squats. And when it's time to set the bar back in the rack, all you'll need to do is lean forward. It's important that you use the same exercise execution and mental focus during the warm-up sets as you do during the heavy sets. Placing the bar as far back as you can on the back of your traps distributes the weight more evenly across your body and makes it easier to squat the weight without falling forward. A spotter being there during squats gives me more confidence to train heavier. When spotting on squats, your training partner should place his fist over your pectoral muscles. Your training partner should focus on using his fist to guide you back into erect position when you start leaning forward more than it is to help you squat the weight. Take your time and get yourself balanced if you don't feel comfortable during a set. That's what warm-up sets and acclimation sets are for. I'll do one acclimation set and I'll be ready for maximum overload. I want to keep my head up and my shoulders back. I want to keep my core tight and control the weight on the way down. Setting the safety bars on the squat rack can make you feel more comfortable squatting the heavier weight and going for that extra rep. For this particular Max Ot training routine, I'll do 2 heavy sets. I keep each set within the 4 to 6 repetition range. Some people believe that legs need to be trained in a higher 10 to 12 repetition range. Legs, just like any other muscle group, can be effectively stimulated for growth in a 4 to 6 repetition range if overloaded with enough weight and trained with enough intensity. Muscle will only adapt and grow if it is forced to do so. Heavy training overloads the muscle and forces it to grow in the shortest period of time. Squats are one of 2 exercises that'll wear a weight belt. Deadlifts are the other. I've squatted with and without a belt, and I feel more comfortable wearing one. I no longer use knee wraps when squatting. They can definitely help you squat more weight, but I've decided to do all the work without them. You should do what works best for you. Make every set count. Don't pace yourself. Don't look past the set you're doing. Don't ration your energy to what you think you will need to last the entire workout. This is what intensity is all about. I'll now move on to leg presses. My legs are already warmed up from the squats, but I will do 2 acclimation sets just to get the feel of this exercise. You want to keep your knees tucked in during the entire movement and prevent them from flaring outward. You want to go down as deeply as possible without letting the weight rest at the bottom of the leg press, even if you need to suck in your air as your knees meet your torso. Your feet need to be positioned properly on the leg press platform. If your feet are too high, you'll place too much emphasis on your hamstrings and not enough on your quadriceps. If your feet are too low, you'll create too much stress on your knees. All leg press machines distribute the weight differently, so you'll need to experiment to see which foot position works best for you. I'm now ready to do the 2 heavy sets that this Max Ot training routine calls for. Once again, I keep my heavy overload sets within the 4 to 6 repetition range. Notice how I have my hands on my knees. Having them there just gives me more certainty and confidence to attack the heavy weight. I do not use my hands to help move the weight. Keep your core tight and keep your butt from coming out of the seat as you challenge yourself to heavier weight. I always want to make sure I control the weight on the negative phase of the movement. To keep these Max OT training sessions short, intense, and effective, I don't do a lot of talking when I train. If I do have anything to say, I only talk about training once the workout begins. You train for less than 1 hour, 5 days a week. You need to focus. There's plenty of time to talk the other 23 hours of the day. Notice how I approach each exercise in the very same consistent pattern. This small mental distinction helps me become more consistent with my strength and execution. I program myself for peak performance. I'll now do exercises that focus on my hamstrings. In this particular Max OT leg training workout, I'll start off with leg curls. I'll do 2 heavy sets. I keep each set within the 4 to 6 repetition range. When executing leg curls, I visualize moving my legs in a nice wide arc, on the way up and on the way down. I never want to cut this movement short. This mental imagery gives me better mind-muscle connection and helps me hit the hamstrings more effectively.